Hey my friends, today we are painting a beach landscape with watercolor. What else would it be? And I just wanted you guys to think of these 6 things that I feel like make a difference when we're doing landscapes, especially for beginners. So this is beginner friendly, advanced friendly, but I'm reminding you to just let go of that perfectionism. Take a deep breath. You've got this. If it feels complicated, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but you can go at your pace. So let's get into the painting. All right, we will spray down our palette and we are going to start with our landscape painting. Now I've got my pencil here. I've got my paper taped down, or the edges taped down. I'm using my Meeden watercolor paper today. It's beautiful cotton. Link in the description if you'd like to get your own. And let's get started. So I hold the pencil really loosely. So my first landscape tip is to do a light sketch. So I'm looking at my reference. Let me just show you what I'm using here from Pinterest. And I'm simply taking that as inspiration, but we'll see how it comes out, how we actually do things. You know me. So just kind of loosely, going around here, creating that shoreline at this diagonal. And then we can put some trees on here. That's going to be great. And just kind of taper off from there. I don't like to have such a huge body of water because we can lose some interest in that if it becomes a little bit too much. But I want to have some rocks jutting out here. Well, we're going to do trees, so we should probably hold on that. I'm going to put some mountains in the background. I'm going to make my horizon line right about here in the middle. I know that the rules say don't do that because it just cuts it in half and it's not as attractive, and I think, man, it just doesn't really matter. Just do what you want to do. So then I'm going to, holding that pencil very loosely, just add in some cool mountainy shapes. Going around here, we've got some ridges that will go down too. And maybe some mountains more over here. I want my trees in this section, so my palm trees, just going to start putting in the trees, just really loose, you see. We'll do another one about right here, kind of going off into the side there. And I love having a nice sketch. Do another one here, just angling away from the others. The sketch helps to give me some confidence in my placement. It's really helpful for landscape, especially if you're new to landscapes and it just feels intimidating, or just really brand new and you're not sure what you're doing, just doing some roots down there. It's just great to have your sketch. So, nothing too crazy. And I'm just going to put it through there. Got our mountains, some crevices there. I'm like, what is that word? And that's really it. That's about all I want to do with this. And we're just going to start with our painting experiences. So I'm using my filbert brush. It's part of my watercolor brush collection, but it's almost like a flat wash. You can use it like one. It's going to be great. Let's start by adding in a very loose sky. So I'm getting some nice watery blue paint here. And I'm just going to start doing these brush strokes back and forth, kind of following through past where the taped border is. Then we can get some nice smooth mixing, a little more water, a little more paint. I like it to be fairly simplistic, not overly complicated. And just going all the way down to the mountains. So when you're doing your landscape, I'd say the second tip is just to simplify. You can't do everything. You can even go over the mountains. That's fine. They'll be darker later on. So don't be worried about that. Simplify what you can. So let's go a little darker for the top. These large brush strokes. It's okay if it's streaky. We're just playing wet on wet here. But you don't want to do high details in everything. Then it's just going to be complicated. It also doesn't look as nice when everything is so busy. So putting those streaks again, back and forth. So I like to simplify. The sky is an easy thing to keep simple. The ground is a pretty easy thing to keep simple too. And so that's another thing that you can do. Let's put it in the ground now. So I love to use a mixture of yellows, browns, yellow ochre. Just kind of grab whatever's on your palette and just start adding in. That's really red. That'll work though. Just start putting in this shape going around your pencil mark. The ground is one of those simple spaces. There we are. And I'll grab some yellow and I can drop that in, wet on wet. It's really intense, but it's going to get a little lighter as it dries. And I don't want to forget behind the trees. Now the tree trunks will be dark, so you don't have to worry too much again about, just like the sky, about going over those pencil lines. They will survive. There we go. So then you can take your brush and just kind of run it along the edges. Just enjoying the process, putting the ground in there, and then we'll let that dry. So I would like to do the water next. Hopefully this will be dry by the time I get down to there. And I'm going to use my large brush still. So if you have an aqua or a turquoise, it's a really beautiful color to use. But if you just have blues, those are also beautiful. You can add a little green to your blue to make more of an aqua. And I'm keeping this pretty simple today. And so I'm just going to go back and forth with my brush, even over the tree trunks. Putting in those marks, allowing some of the white space to stay. So just going to be kind of those reflections on the water. This is a beautiful, very light color. I just like to go very quickly back and forth. Just use that really free motion. Getting some dry brush in there too. And I'm angling it towards where the shore is here versus like over here, straight down. Just kind of angling it in there. And you can even go back and forth like this, little swooping brush strokes. Obviously left a lot of white space at this point. It's not necessarily what I'm going to keep it like, but can never put that white of the paper back in. So got to be conservative about it. There we go. I have noticed if I make it too streaky, then sometimes it starts to look just kind of fake. So just taking some of this paint wet on wet and going over some of these spaces, filling in some of the white. Don't forget that part. There we go. I'd say a third tip for painting landscapes for me is just, we said to simplify the painting, but just like kind of thinking about interpreting the painting versus just trying to copy, the reference photo or whatever you're using. Trying to interpret it in your own way versus being too concentrated on copying it exactly. That can be very stressful and frustrating if you try to say you're going to copy it exactly and then it doesn't turn out like that, and it becomes more like, how come I didn't get it right, versus how can I use this this painting, or if you're painting in person, how can I use this as a way to help me interpret it into something that I would like to create, my own composition, my own art. I'm taking my quill now. You can take a number 10 round if you have that, and just grabbing a little bit of blue. Just want to pop in a little bit of some blue here and there. And I know I'm going to get some blooms, but see, just going back and forth. And you can slow down this video if you need to. I also want to say, if you're liking the video, please hit the like button. And let me know in the comments what you're liking, what's resonating with you. So yeah, interpret the painting how you would like. Don't get so caught up into making it perfect. I'm taking really dark turquoise. You can take dark blue if you want. It's pretty dry paint. I can even dab on my paper towel, take off the excess. So it's more of like a dry brush. I just wanted to put in a little bit more darkness for that horizon. Although it's not really the horizon because we have our mountains, but if the mountains weren't there, we would call it a horizon line, okay? All right, just putting in a few more marks here and there. The movement of the water. Beautiful. And I like working wet on wet because it gives us those beautiful, the beautiful marks, the bleeds, the spreads, and then it's just these softer edges that come out. All right, I've cleaned my brush, I've dabbed it, and I'm just gonna go over and smooth some of this out if I think it's too harsh or a weird shape. And yeah. All right, so we'll let that alone for now. What I want to do is start adding in my mountains, and this is really dry, that's good. So we'll do those next. I'm using that quill. I've got some beautiful sap green. So I'm going to start with adding that in, kind of following the edges that I've put in with the ridges here to make the ridges. And it's going to spread in the water. It's okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of this, a different type of green. This is a green gold. And I'm just like kind of copying this, you know, the sketch that I put in over here. Adding that in on this side too. One thing that you have to think about is, and I'm not really going to leave too much, you know, white space here, but eventually we're going to put in some ridges more as this is drying. But you want to differentiate between one edge and another. So for example, once this is dry, we'll want to do something dark right here that is contrasting from this one over here, so it doesn't look like one mountain with these two bumps, if that makes sense. And then there we go, just putting this in here. It's okay if you go over the pencil lines once again. We are gonna be all right. Okay, and then I've got this little space right here. Maybe a bit of a darker blue-green color, just for now. A lot of these colors are going to just smear together, and that's okay. We'll put defining marks later. But while this is dry, or sorry, it's still wet, I want to just add in some darkness on the edge of this one. And this one. It's fun to just pop in that color while it's still wet. It's practicing a very different effect from just doing, you know, some paint on dry spaces. Okay, all right, so that's coming together well. Cleaning, dabbing my brush, and I'm just gonna go back and forth a little bit to spread this out. You know, this green here could be kind of like those like reflections in the water, so you can make that work for you. Just saying. All right, how are you feeling about your painting? We are coming quite a far way so far. With this is the ground, and I'm gonna put in a little bit of splatter so that can have a chance to dry. I'm gonna use my number 6 round brush for this, and just grab in some tan or brown, whatever you have. Pre-tap it, and then just like a little bit of tapping, trying to protect the water if you can. A little tapping, just a little bit of splatter for some things on the ground. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will dry this, and then we will come back and start with our trees and other details. Okay, so now we've got everything dried up for the most part. If it's a little bit wet or damp still, it's okay, but we're working on this side, and that's what I was drying, what I was concerned about. All right, I'm going to take my quill, and I'm just going to start going dark for these tree trunks here. So I've got a Vandyke brown, which I really love. This is by Mei Liang. I love all of their paints. A lot of my paints are Winsor & Newton, but I've got some Mei Liangs, and I find them to be just, you know, right up there with your professionals. So that's my humble opinion. So I'm just, you know, using this light touch and filling in this tree trunk situation here. All right, adding that in, and you know, it's okay for it to be wonky. I always say that it's actually better that way. You want it to look natural. And nature doesn't do things perfectly. So it does things well. Nature does things well, but doesn't do things perfectly. And so we're not going to do things perfectly either. How about that? Doesn't that just take the pressure off? I think it does. My fourth, I hope it does. My fourth tip for painting landscapes is just to use a variety of brushes. You're going to see me use several different ones. I love a flat wash brush, but I do love something that has, you know, a detail oriented part of it. So that could be, you know, using this quill that can do really thin marks because it's very pointed, and it holds a lot of water and paint, or you can use like a smaller brush, like a number 6 round, which I do love for details. And then also I love to use a liner brush, and that's going to give us beautiful thin lines to be able to do our grasses and such, which can be really fun. If you don't have a liner, I highly encourage you to pick one up because they are versatile when it comes to those really thin marks and making the grasses more realistic. So these tree trunks are wonky, you can see that. And I wanted them to be that way. Oh, I did it on purpose. This one is all like crooked and weird. Something happened to it, just didn't grow very straight, but that's okay. And that's how we're making it today. 3 in a row. I'm gonna take my number 6 round, make sure it is clean, and dab it to make sure it is damp, not soaking. And then I am going to, let's see, we can make this the shadow side and this the light side. I'm just gonna see what this looks like if I take off, clean, dab, take off a little paint here, clean, dab. Just for a little contrast. Like a little bit, or it could even be like texture in the bark, whatever you want it to be, right? So you just remove some paint. That's my 5th tip, I guess. Removing some paint for some highlights or for some texture. Now, this is one way I love to do rocks. You add in different browns and things, and then a little bit of a highlight on the top of the rock or on the side to create some variation. And it's beautiful. It's a different way than just doing like light paint versus and dark and mixing those together, or like mixing sections. So anyway, it's just fun. Okay, now we're gonna start putting in our fronds. I am gonna use we're gonna do the number 6 round and see how that goes. I typically like how that turns out. So the fronds are what starts to put everything together. I'm gonna start with my sap green, and they'll have some dark that we can do later too. My sap green is lovely. And I'm going to dab the brush so I don't have too much on my brush. And then I'm just going to start adding in where my fronds are going to be. Right there. I'm just going to put those in, let them overlap too. And then we're just going to do these over and over, little brush strokes, creating these beautiful diagonal shapes for your fronds. And this is what brings that beach scene to life, I think. I mean, I know it. It does. It really makes everything so beautiful. And it's quite a task to do this over and over and over. So you can start to kind of get into the rhythm as you're doing this over and over. It's going to start to feel easier to put these marks in. And, you know, we're not looking for perfect here. You can use a different type of brush than this and see how that works for your work. Sometimes you like a thinner mark and sometimes you like thicker ones, and you know, each person's different. Some people like to take a fan brush and do something like this. A fan brush, you know, it's got a lot going on, and to have to control that feels like that would be difficult, but there's a way. There's a way. If there's a will, there's a way to do it. So I'm just going to quickly put these in. Again, if this is too fast for you, you can just pause the video or watch it half speed and get into it that way. But this is going to be a thing over and over here. And I just love how this starts to bring everything together with these trees. And I like to do, that's my sixth tip. Did I say 5 already? I think so. So number 6 is to use odd numbers of objects in your landscape. So the example today will be the palm trees. We have 3. Now, why do you need to use odd numbers? Well, our let's say our intuition, but our brains seem to like odd numbers of things. Now, you would think sometimes, especially with perfectionists, that you're wanting to do even, right? Keeping things even, symmetrical. But there's something about odd groupings of things, for example, these 3 trees, that ends up looking more interesting to the eye. And I think I've heard it explained that sometimes, subconsciously you're looking at a photo, at a picture, whatever, and your brain is just sort of matching up the objects. If you have 4 flowers, okay, 2 here and 2 here, what else is there to look at? But if there's 5, your brain is matching these 2 here, these 2 here, but then there's 1 here, so maybe these 2 here, these 2 here, and you just kind of go around the page looking for, trying to find symmetry. But they have found, whoever they are, right? It's more attractive to have the odd grouping. So go figure. All right, we've got these guys in. This is starting to come together quite nicely. I want to get more detail and texture in these mountains here. So I'm literally just going to go grab more concentrated amounts of this paint. I'm just going to dabbing, creating that boundary there. There's a little crevice here that I sketched in. So I'm just going to put that in now. And this is going to be like just, very loose, okay? Do not overthink it. Do not think you are creating the most famous work of art, and so therefore it has to be perfect. Unless you're entering it into some type of a competition, you just probably don't need to be worried. And even then, you don't need to worry because it is what it is. I think it shouldn't be about perfect. It should be, did you have fun? Was it a good time? All that good stuff. So important to learn. Enjoying the process of creating your art, not just your end result. But it's tough to do. So ridges here. Some ridges here, maybe a little bit darker over here too. And back here also. And then this one here, I'm going to take a little bit of brown, a little bit of green, and add some little blobby shapes to those guys. Back here, I'm literally just gonna go and dab some green in there. This is the background. It's not something that we're really focusing detail on, but I do want to keep adding in some details here in the front. And so I'm going to grab my liner. I don't know if I'm ready to use it yet, but here's the liner brush. It's wonderful for grasses and things. Actually, let's go ahead. Let's just start doing it. So wetting that brush. I like to start with a dark green. It'll show up very easily and I don't have to add a bunch of layers. So I'm just going to do these flick marks. This is my favorite thing. This is going to give you that oomph, that extra pizzazz to your nature scene. And then over here too, can even hold it farther back so then maybe you can see better and I don't cover it hopefully with my hand. But yeah, you want some grass in there. You want it to be dark. I can even just like go like this, little sketchy lines, and that totally works. Just a little bit here. Some of these could be longer, some of these could be shorter. You ever see grass at the beach? Sure thing. Right here, at the base of the tree. And over there. Okay, and as this is drying, we're gonna put some dark in here once it's drying out more. For the water, I'm gonna take my quill, and we've got some texture and things here. Sometimes I mess with the painting too much, so hopefully I won't be messing with it too much, but dabbing the brush, I want to darken up a little bit over here. Sometimes I don't know exactly how I'm doing the texture until I just start doing it, you know, and that's just part of things. I see a fruit fly is trying to catch a ride on my brush. What are you doing? Don't like those. They are hard to get rid of, you know? So hard to get rid of. Even when you've cleaned up all the fruit and all the food. A little bit more over here. This is going to dry very light. But you can see just adding in a little bit more texture. Some dry brushing is nice. I do like all the white space that's in here. And so I don't think I'll have to add any white here. But I think I'd like to add some white at the shoreline. If you have white, then great. And if you don't have to do it. But it's just a little extra thing that can be really pretty. Okay, let's get our white. This is a gouache. It's a white paint. And it is water soluble, but you know, if you add a lot of water, it's going to act like watercolor. So we don't want to do that. We want it in its thickest form. So I've got a clean, damp brush. I'll try not to have to mix a lot of, you know, water in it. And I'm just going to do this dabbing to make that frothiness. But again, you don't have to do this if you don't have this paint. It's just kind of fun. You can also cover up the pencil lines if that bothers you. Now it is really thick, so it's not going to be as spreadable. But I'm just going to blobbing that. I really like the texture that it brings when I put that on here. So with big chunks. So we'll just kind of see. Yep, lots of chunkies. A lot of this painting is, you know, about practicing patience. This is not something that just happens overnight, right? Getting this done. Well, it does. I mean, it doesn't take that long, but in terms of how to do this and feeling confident in landscapes and all that, it can be a challenge. I did just come out with my landscape course, and so you can find the link in the description of this video if you'd like to take a look and see what it's about now. Registration has closed, but we will have more registrations available at some point. You can click that link. It's for latecomers, and we will email you if there's a chance where you can sign up again. Or when there will be a chance, don't worry. But when you're able to. So there we go. All right, friends, I'd love you to let me know in the comments, you know, what you've liked about this video, maybe what you've learned. If there's another type of painting you'd like me to do in the future, whether it's landscape or flowers. I do a lot of flowers, but I don't have to do just flowers. I love a lot of things. Flowers are always my favorite. My first love. There we go. So it doesn't have to be super realistic, just playful and fun. And I like having the white space there too. That gives you, in between, it looks like there's bubbles and stuff. It's great. And if you want to, you can even add in a few little, like ripply parts if you think that you need it, but probably not if you've left some white space like I did. It should be okay. A little bit of dry brushing, though, doesn't hurt anyone. So that's what I say. Okay, great. Little by little, you can see all these things do add up to the final product when you grab some brown, but it's worth it to do all the little intricate details. So just a little bit of stippling for some dirt, some rocks at the base of these grasses, so they're not just floating out there. It's going to give it some grounding. It's going to make it look more realistic. And those are, you know, it's a simple way to do rocks if you want to do rocks. Whatever it is. I don't really know. I just know that it's there. Okay. What else? Ooh, let's do some little bands on the tree. These are going to be vertical. So dark brown, dab your brush, and you're literally just gonna go and do these little squiggly marks. Don't try to make them perfect, but you're gonna see a lot of these bands on palm trees. Some little dots in some cases. Those are just those beautiful little details that I love to add. Okay, we have to darken up our palm trees next. So same number 6 around, grabbing some very thick dark green. So if you don't have a dark green, you can just add some black or some dark blue to a green. Dab your brush, take off some of that water, and we're just going to start adding in some darkness underneath the frond. So like under here. Gonna give it some definition. The shadowy bits. Over here. And then just keep going. So this does not have to be perfect. I also like to darken it up right here at the center. And over here. A little bit here too. And this is going to give really great dimension and texture to your painting, to your fronds. So at this point, like, I'm not being, super careful. I'm just kind of putting in that contrast, and I like it to be sketchy, artistic, not perfect in any way. So getting it really dark right here. And yeah, it's looking good. There we go. How do you feel about your painting? If you felt nervous at all, I want you to take a deep breath. Maybe you have to take a deep breath right now and remind yourself it's just a painting. And it's just a process of learning and growing and figuring out what you enjoy when it comes to your painting experience and landscapes. Maybe you've never done a landscape. I'm going to darken up this line here. I think that's one of the last things I got to do. A little bit of ripples. Maybe you've never done one, and so this is a first time for you. So congratulations. And maybe you've never done a beach, so congratulations if it's the first time, or maybe you didn't know that you would enjoy painting this type of thing and it surprised you. So it's a good day. And if you didn't love what you painted, you can always try it again. You can always try it with different colors, a different new perspective. Let's take off that tape because it is so satisfying. And again, like I said, let me know in the comments what you felt about this one. This is actually going as a gift to some friends who have been very kind to my family, and just a little bit of beach to brighten their life, their day. All right, friends, look at that beautiful border. We've done it. Congratulations. Happy painting and happy mental health. Friends, wasn't that fun? I'm excited because I get to give this as a gift to a friend and to a family and framing it for them just as a thank you. It's nice to be able to give something away once in a while that you've made with your own hands. So I highly encourage you to do it. It feels great. People love it. You were thinking of them. It's just all good. It gives you a reason to paint sometimes. I want to draw your attention to the link below here because I am going on my Italy art retreat at the end of October. I do have one spot left in case someone wants to come last minute, but in case you're considering going with us next year, 2026, we're gonna be going back to Italy at the end of October again. So you can sign up. The link is there for the wait list, and then you'll be on the list. So you can decide later if you want to go or not. But first come, first serve. So there's all that. And then if I do have any more of my watercolor brushes, guys, I know you hear about this all the time, but if you're wanting a set and you're one of those people that haven't gotten the set yet, click the link below and there should be still some sets left, a few. We're almost out. I don't know what's happening with that. Anyway, thank you for painting with me. Appreciate you all. I wish you well, happy painting and happy mental health, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Oh yeah, sign up for my free Monday class. Linked down there. Coming up tomorrow, Monday.